Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. On today's show we are going to go over a couple of swim fins bitten, vicious attack on a surfer, and we will also go over very briefly Cameron Robbins because of one little issue that I saw that I didn't see before, and then we're going to go over the Vladimir Popov attack. So it's going to be a great show. I hope you stick with us. Okay, now we're going to start out over at Little Island, and that is in Hillary's Boat Harbor. That's Western Australia, and the date, October 26, 2013. Todd Robinson, he and a friend are out diving, free diving for crayfish, and they're over 2 kilometers off shore, so they're over a mile off of shore, and probably relatively shallow water, seeing as they're free diving down to pick these up. I think, 20, 25 feet maximum. And so they're out there and they're diving for these crayfish. It's about 10:55, and earlier in the day at 10:30 they had reopened the beaches because sharks, great whites, were pinging near the beaches along that area until late in the morning. So at 10:30 they opened up the beaches. 10:55 rolls around and he's in the water and his buddy's up in the boat. They have a 4 meter by 2 meter like dinghy, and his buddy's up in the dinghy and he's in the water and he notices that there's a big dark shape. So it must be off in that distance where you can't actually see it, but you can see the darkness of it, which is spooky. And he says right then his buddy grabs onto him and pulls him up and into the dinghy. He gets into the dinghy and he looks down and his swim fin has been bitten. So he believes that, that shark had grabbed a hold of his fin, and probably did. Probably gave it one of those test bites and then went on its way. Luckily for him, he gets up into the boat. There's no injury to him, but the shark continued on. It sounds like it was a 4 meter great white, because later on in the afternoon there was another diver that came out, and at 3:30 I think he reported it, that he had a 4 meter great white shark come at him. He was out spearfishing. He had fish on his float, and the shark came at him and did a circle motion and then came straight at him to where he had to poke it in the nose. And once he poked the shark in the nose, it turned and looked at his fish. So he released his line and the shark took the fish and disappeared. So it could be the same 4 meter shark in both these situations, just looking for an easy meal. Luckily not an easy meal of the divers. So that's our attack on Todd Robinson. An attack, not an attempt to predate, most likely a 4 meter great white shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to the south side of the Mount Street Jetty, and that is in Bayhead, New Jersey, and the date is November 7th of 2013. Quin Gates, he is 16 years old. He and a friend are out doing some bodyboarding. They're by the jetty. It doesn't say the distance from shore or the depth, and the time of day is just the afternoon. They're both, it sounds like, waiting on a wave when suddenly Quin feels a tug on his right foot. Now, he's got his bodyboard, and on his right foot he has a blue swim fin. On his left foot he has a black swim fin. He felt that tug, and then he looked at his swim fin, and it was bitten off from the tip of the swim fin all the way to the tip of his toes. He goes in, shark expert looks at his foot and says, yeah, it's most likely a 6 to 8 foot shark in the area. He says that they have anything from, tiger to great white, mako, sand tiger, the occasional the occasional blue shark. And so he says all those have the capability of biting that swim fin off like that. So he said about a 6 to 8 foot shark ended up biting that foot, just missing his toes. So Quin Gates, he gets out very lucky on attack. Not an attempt to predate, no injury to Quin Gates. There was a marine biologist came out and said that the shark, most likely bit it, mistaking it for a fish or a seal. Again, I don't think it's mistaken identity, like it's a flash of a second. They're not looking at it saying, hey, that's a fish or a seal. They're looking at something moving and biting it. I call it accidental, they call it mistaken identity. We'll move on. Okay, now we have a very recent attack. We're going to go over to Beachport, which is in Australia, and the date on this was October 2nd of 2023. This was sent to me by viewer Ali. He sends me videos all the time, and this one fascinated me. I told him that you know, it was very interesting. So we're going to get into this one right now. We've had great white attacks before that are biting people, but this one is a little bit different. So Pam Cook, she's 64 years old, and she is out swimming with the Beachport sea urchins and slugs. I can't say that name without laughing, because I'd be a slug. And she's out there swimming. They're doing their daily swim, and they've been doing this daily swim for 30 years. That's how rare shark attacks are. They've never had a shark in the area, basically. It sounds like, at least not what's going to end up being there to get her. But they're at the jetty. It's in the morning. They meet up about 7:30 in the morning every morning, and they go in the water and they swim. It sounds like where they go, it's off the jetty, but the jetty is actually a long pier, it looks like, a long wooden pier. And it sounds like, because the rescuer, it says that had to run 300 meters down that pier to get to where they were in the water. I guess there's a ladder you get down in the water. Well, Pam had gotten down in the water and gotten off the ladder, and she's sitting there and she felt something on her ankle. She felt a tug on her ankle, and thinking, again, this is one of my buddies from the swim club playing a prank. She says she turned around and was horrified because there was nobody there, and shortly after that, the shark had returned and latched onto her thigh, and it sounds like it was trying to rip the thigh off. Bit her in the thigh. She ended up with cuts on her hands. It doesn't say anything about them having to stitch up her ankle at all, which is kind of odd, because it tugged on her ankle first, but you know, maybe they just didn't include that. But she ended up being taken out of the water. Now, people heard her scream. She's sitting there screaming, and she's waving. So she's waving. The shark had probably already left her alone long before that. It might have been just the one bite. She got her hand from pushing on it or whatever, and the shark went on its way. But she's waving. Her people down there that are on the pier are thinking that she's, you know, being friendly, waving hello, and then they realized that something's wrong. They thought it was a medical emergency. So a couple of the men that were down there at the beach by the pier ran down the pier to go see her, to go get her. They run down the pier, and when they get there, they see two women come out of the water, and they got blood on them. So now he knows, and they tell him it's a shark attack. Well, she's already up and out of the water, because her friend says that, you know, they helped her get over to the ladder, and she got herself up out of that. She had a huge, probably tearing wound to her thigh, and she walked herself up that ladder. And I would too. I would run on the water and forget about the pain temporarily, but she got herself up there, and they did the CPR on her there, and you know, the tourniquet, got her in, and she did a 5-hour surgery, over 200 stitches for her hand and her thigh. Luckily, it didn't say anything that she needs skin grafts or anything like that, and didn't get any nerves. So they say that it's going to take some time, but that she should return to 100%. Her husband, at the time that she was attacked, he was off getting something. I forget what it was, but he was nearby, and that's got to be terrifying, you know, for these people that are with the person attacked to hear about it and then have to go and check on it. Even when it's not a bad attack, your mind is probably in a bad place on the way there. So that's the attack on Pam Cook, 64 years old. Now, the thing that's about this, you know, the test bite and then the bite isn't the thing, and it was one of these guys. But it was a juvenile, and when I say juvenile, I get to use my little baby clips, because that's 6-7 foot shark. We've gone over them attacking people before. Mostly it's like the one seemed out of surprise. The guy was a diver and just was bit in the chest by this 7-foot great white shark and swam off. I don't remember his name, but I remember the attack because it was such a small shark. The only other small shark like that I can remember is the one that was on the hook on the line with the fishermen that ended up, and you're an idiot for the fishermen that didn't cut the line when they saw that the swimmers were returning to that pier, and that shark went over and bit one of those guys when it was still on the hook. But this one was a test bite, which only happens from, you know, these, and I used to say it only happens from the real large ones, because you hear somebody, thought my buddy grabbed my shoulder. I look over and it's a 15-foot great white. Well, this was a 7-footer that did that little test bite, no pressure. So just a tug, thought it was a friend. So the little guys of these do the same thing. They're the only sharks that I know that test bite. The bulls and probably their cousins, the whalers, probably bump more than they will go ahead and test bite. Tigers don't test anything, they just bite it. That's their test. Problem with them is they're probably going to take something with them on that test. Those sharp teeth. So that's our attack on Pam Cook, and a very interesting one. It's going to go down as an attack, not an attempt to predate, by a great white. We just don't know exactly what size. I hope we get that information from the bite mark, because it seems like it's probably a 6-7 footer that actually bit her ankle and then went forward and bit her in the thigh. So Pam Cook 64, that's our attack. We'll move on. We're going to head over to the south end of Bondi Beach, which is in New South Wales, Australia. The date, December 21st of 2015. Dean Norburn, he is 43 years old, and he and a friend or some friends are out doing some surfing. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and Dean is sitting about 60 yards offshore, so about, 60 meters offshore, so about 70 yards offshore. And it doesn't say the depth of water, and he's sitting on his board, and he's waiting on a wave. Dean says that he had just then put his hands on the board to arch his back, so maybe to stretch, and kind of lifted his head up. And as soon as he did that, something brushed by his face and landed on his board, and it was on the board temporarily, and then ended up in the water and swam off. And this turned out to be his friends that saw it. One of them got a really good look, because he said it was a 6-foot bronze whaler that jumped up there and ended up on the board. Now, like I said, he had just put his hands up there and got his head out of the way. And with these sharks that are jumping out of the water like that, I'm wondering if they're actually going after these people, like if it would bite them in the head if they didn't move beforehand. That's kind of what it seems. Ends up getting in, no problem, tells the beach people what happened, and they check the area, but what are you going to do? It's probably filled with whalers in that area hunting for their fish, just like over in New Smyrna where you have the black tips and the spinners always hunting for their fish, where the people are surfing most of the time, surfing and playing in the surf. So that's the attack on Dean Norburn. An attack, no injury to the board, and we will move on. Okay, we're going to head over to Shelley Beach, which is in New South Wales, Australia. The date is November 9th of 2015. Tadashi Nakahara, he is 41 years old, and he is out doing some surfing. There's a lot of surfers in the water. It's in the morning. It's just before 10 o'clock. I've seen different reports that he's either 10 meters or 50 meters offshore. I would go with 50 meters. So, about 150 feet from shore, 160 feet from shore. It's 10 in the morning, and he's on his board. There's other surfers around him. Off to the right, they're about 10 meters from him, so about 30 feet. And then off to the left, there's some about 15 feet from him. And all of a sudden, a shark comes up and grabs onto his legs and his board and clamps down. The surfers around him immediately go to his aid. This is a one bite and leave situation. When they got there was nothing they could really do for Tadashi. They took him into the shore and started tourniquets and life-saving procedures immediately, but to no avail. It's reported both of his legs were severed, but I haven't seen an official report. I've seen reports that his legs were severed and the board was bitten in half. And some reports are that it was a bronze whaler. Other reports are it's a great white. If you're talking, a 12, 13 foot bronze whaler, it probably could do the same thing. So it's hard to tell. I don't think anybody got a really close look at the shark. And it sounds like I said, one of those one bites, and those are over in seconds. That's the shark bit and it's gone. And it sounds like that's what happened with Tadashi. He ends up being a fatality to this shark though, so he ends up in that minority where a board is involved, where less than 20% that we've gone over so far have been fatalities when they're with their board. A lot of times their board takes the brunt of it, and the board ends up getting all the injury, and the person is fine. So this is a sad one for Tadashi, and that's our attack on him. Attack, not an attempt to predate. Probably a great white, possibly a bronze whaler, so we're just going to put large shark. Okay, now we're going to head over near Atoll Island, the Bahamas, and the date on this is May 24th of 2023. Cameron Robbins, 18 years old. He was on the cruise ship. It's the Blackbeard's Revenge Sunset Cruise. He was on this cruise ship. Ship was stopped from all I remember from the video, and he's on the boat, dared to jump into the water, and he jumps into the water. Now, it's 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. It's 11:30 at night, and you know, he jumps into the water, and you can see in the video that there's some kind of a disturbance in the water off to the left of him. It looks like he sees that disturbance, which to me, the disturbance looks like a fish movement in the water. And he seems to me, looks at that and then starts swimming over towards the preserver that's been in the water the whole time next to him to the right. I've heard people say that boat was moving. There's no way you're going to be sitting there filming and that preserver is just going to be sitting there. That thing's going to be long behind the boat, let alone Cameron and this shark. So that boat was sitting still. Right when he swims over towards that preserver, that's when he disappears, and it looks like a bobber to me, where it just disappears on that angle underwater like a fish would do when it takes a bobber when they go fishing. So the only reason I wanted to bring this one up again is because, what is he? The Royal Bahamas Defense Force Commodore Raymond King confirmed that the waters there are not just shark infested, they're very shark infested with bulls and tigers. So anybody that doubts that was a shark that took him away after a 2-day search finds nothing, I can't help you. We'll move on. Okay, now we're going to finish out the unprovoked attacks over at Hurghada, Egypt. And this attack took place relatively recent, a couple months ago, and this is Vladimir Popov, 23. They don't say which resort beach he was at. You know, they don't want to scare people off of any of the resorts, so fine. We know where it happened. We know it was in the water. We know a shark ended up doing this. What we didn't know, at least what I didn't know, and I always think about when these people are filming, is what made the person film. The Popov one, I don't think it was his family filming him, which is like what happened prior to what we see. And what I saw, remember seeing, you know, I've only seen the video a couple times when it first came out, but I remember seeing him in the water, Popov, and no shark. But you could tell he's dealing with something under the water, and then that water splashes up and you see blood in the water, and then you see the shark kind of surface next to him. That's awful, just completely awful. But what happened prior to that is the shark circled him twice. His father said that the shark circled him and then attacked him. So what we ended up, I think, seeing in the video is after the shark had circled and then went on, submerged and went and started attacking. And the sad thing is you know, that this thing took place so quickly and so much damage was done at the time it took place, but what was done afterwards too. The whole situation is just gruesome, so we're going to get into it. Popov is in the water, looks like probably about 100 yards off the shore at the most. It's hard to tell because they zoom out. But like I said, the shark is down underneath there, and then the shark surfaces next to him, comes back, biting on him again, and then flips him upside down. And he's upside down with his legs out of the water for quite, you know, a good probably 6-10 seconds. That's a long time. And, you know, oh, it's just brutal to imagine. Flips back over, and he's pretty much out of any kind of fight, and he's not shouting to his father anymore, who's sadly on the beach watching all of this. And then you see that the shark has returned, and that boat comes up. Now the boat was, I believe, was driven by this Muhammad, because he's the one who went out to help him, because he came out with the boat, and as you see the boat come out, he reaches in the water. I didn't realize that this guy had a girl with him in the water. She's right there with him, and she is in shock, and that's who he's reaching into the water to pull out of the water. This Muhammad went out there, and when he got out there with the boat, he said he saw Popov, and Popov must have raised an arm because he had no hand. So he said the first thing he noticed, blood in the water. Then Popov raised his arm, and he had no hand. And then the shark surfaced, and he could tell there was nothing he was going to be able to do for Popov. It was probably attacking him at the time. So he saw the girl in the water, picked her up, got her out of the water, took her to shore. By the time he got back, there was nothing he could do. This shark ended up for 2 hours going around with Popov's body. Not David Lilienfeld, the other one, the dinosaur-sized shark. Big guy too. It's one of the biggest guys that we've had attacked. But he was in the one where the shark paraded him, great white paraded him around the beach before it took him off. This same thing happened here, but with a tiger shark of all things. So they couldn't get the remains from this shark. They ended up catching a shark and bringing it to shore. And then we'll get into early reports of what ended up happening. I wouldn't put, you know, 100% into this. These are the reports that they say. This isn't from a coroner report or anything. It's reported that they they brought the shark to shore. The people there beat it to death. They had metal bars and things, and they were just beating this thing to death. So they killed the shark. I don't like that, but I'm not going to hold it against them. They just witnessed that horrific thing. And one of the main things when you can't do something about something that horrific, with me anyway, is it goes to anger. And it looks like that's what happened there. I mean, you just get mad. That's what happened with the shark. It got killed. They open up the shark. They find Vladimir's head and a hand inside the shark. Could have been other things, but they retrieved other body parts from around the area. So this shark went to town on this kid, and you know, like I say, I'd rather have it be a great white shark and one of those bit in half deals where maybe you're aware of it for a couple seconds, but pretty much not feeling anything, I don't think, and you're spared a lot of that. And these protracted ones, this one I put right there with Rodney Temple, pieced apart by the two oceanic white tips. That's the same type of thing when you're eaten by a shark. You're alive, you're aware of it. His buddy, when he was down there, Rodney Temple, fighting those sharks off until he's out of energy. Same thing we saw happen there, just terrible. Another thing with the attack that we went over on Tadashi, where his legs were severed, that one was caught on video. It was captured on video by Coastal Watch over there in Australia, the Tadashi fatality. I guess they have cameras that will watch beaches, and they checked their footage, and they did see that, but they never released the footage. I think they need to release the footage. I think these videos need to be out there. I think people need to have at least a chance to see what can happen if they go out in the water before they go there. Before they make up their mind, they should have all the information out there, and then they can make up their mind. Everybody's out there lecturing them, telling them these are all accidents, they're rare, they're mistaken ID, and that's not the truth. These things are things that these sharks do because you're in the water, and a lot of times, you know, with the tiger, they don't care. They might take your hand, they might take something, they just will bite. They bite things in the water. With the bull, you don't want to run into them when you're near shore, because it seems from the attacks we've covered, they are hunting when they're there, because the bull sharks that are attacking out in the open ocean on these spear fishermen, it's usually a bite and leave. It's a territorial thing. But you get it with a bull near shore, and even a little 6-7 footer, we've had them to where I don't know if it was Frederick Bergstaller or the other guy, one of them just could not get away from a 6-foot shark that pieced him out right there, and the other guy was dragged out to the deep water where two other bulls, they saw 3 fins meet up there, and they found his body in 3 places on that beach. So 3 different beaches, basically. Public should have all this information, and it's just another thumbs down on YouTube to hide the truth from people and go out and show people what these people that go out and swim with these overstuffed, pretty much drunk sharks, that's the effect when they eat. If you go back all the way to when Shark Week was good, their very first season, I think, they had that whale that was being eaten by 25 great whites, and that guy climbed on top of that whale. That's a "you're an idiot" move. Maybe we'll put him in there. And what were you thinking? That's 2. He's a twofer on top of that whale. And I mentioned that to my wife when I was watching that years ago. We're talking 20 years ago, and I'm like, this guy's looking to get killed. But those sharks ate so much of that whale that they couldn't move when they were done. These are the sharks that Ocean Ramsey is jumping in the water with. Not a normal shark that you're not going to be able to predict. It's a little bit non-natural, the things that she does when she jumps in the water. Because, I mean, if you're just okay with sharks, why did you hesitate when that tiger shark came up and was going to take your head off? So, that's our attack on Vladimir. Just a terrible attack. We'll get information, I'm sure, once the autopsy is finished and once they go through it. But just a brutal attack. Actually, some of the other things that were wrong is that the shark bit open his chest, ate away his abdomen. It sounds like he had leg wounds. It's just terrible. The shark, 2 hours with the body. I mean, you can just imagine. So that's the attacks of the show. I do want to give an update here. We're going to talk real quick about pampering. along with the stories that I read in the papers at the time, and the size of the shark that they put in there at the time, and what Jared Lehrer told H. David Baldrige about the size of the shark, the fact that the shark was skinny from the tail to the dorsal, and you had people, the shark was in between two people, and you had people on the beach watching this. I don't think that you're going to be off by double when you're looking at two people separated by a shark. You're going to have a pretty good reference of how big that shark is by how far apart those two people are. He was behind the shark and Pamperin was in front of the shark. And people were on shore watching this. Now, the skinny thing, you're not going to say an 18-foot tiger or an 18-foot great white, let alone a 20-footer, is skinny anywhere. I mean, it's just a monster shark all the way. It's not as big at the back, but once these things hit 20 foot, they are just monstrous all the way through. So that made me lean to it's a 12-foot shark. It's a juvenile that went ahead and took Pamperin away. Now, the thing I want to get into now is that, what's that guy's name? Okay. On my notes here, I went through because I was contacted by somebody that told me that Lehrer had done an interview and he had said that he didn't get into the whole shark taking him down, flipping him upside down at the bottom, seeming to try to swallow him because he was worried about his wife. He didn't want his wife to be upset by that. And I said that, you know, they found the body, they found his remains, and I'm not sure what they said about if they were intact or not, because one thing says that they bit in half, another thing says that they found the full thing. So I scoured through all the Robert Pamperin stories just recently, and I found that Glenn Carraway Jr., this is the guy that they found. It was not Robert Pamperin's remains. Glenn Carraway Jr., he was caught in a riptide in April of 1959. This is the guy they found. So Robert Pamperin is still out there. So he was consumed. And the only thing I'm changing on his attack from the correcting the record is I'm removing him from being swallowed whole. I do not believe that. I believe that the reports that he grabbed him by the waist and took him away is what had happened. So that's it for that. We'll get into a You're an Idiot. This is going to have nothing to do with sharks from here on out. So everybody that watches me for sharks, thanks for watching. Everybody sticking around for You're an Idiot. Nothing to do with sharks, but, you know, I'm the idiot, so stick around. Okay, before we get to the end of the show with You're an Idiot, I wanted to say that Ashley had gotten a hold of me. She's a viewer. Her husband, Jared, is a huge viewer of the show, of course, and a big fan. And he's turning 40. So, Jared Sanchez, happy 40th birthday from me and the whole Sharks Happen family. Make sure you get yourself an Uber. Stay safe. You don't have to worry about anything. Have as much fun as you want. I don't even think they had Uber 14 years ago. But, so I got a ride home. So that's it. Happy birthday, Jared. And now we'll move on. We got to get to this You're an Idiot, and I'm the idiot. Doing this show, when I did this show, I researched everything about doing a YouTube video, a channel, from equipment, what matters, what's going to push a video out, the algorithm, all that. I researched it all before I even knew what channel I wanted to do. I wanted to do politics, but at the time, that's why I was watching YouTube. I was locked down here in Michigan, and I'm sitting here watching all my political channels being dropped from YouTube because they're using words that YouTube made illegal. You know, things like election fraud and stuff like that still allow us to use now 3 years later. So I wasn't politics, but I knew everything about this. So I go into Rumble and I post 40-something videos in the last 4 days or so. And I'm going to see how this thing is going and if I can get traction there. And I load 40-something videos up and I'm watching the views and I'm like, well, there's raw views and there's unique views. So I look into those and I'm like, well, wait a minute here. Raw views seems to be impressions, and that means that there's no send out over here. And I see a CTR, but there's no CTR. And then I'm like, I got to look into this further. So I look and it turns out that they have a balanced system. It's fair for everybody, unlike YouTube's, where YouTube keeps control. Rumble don't keep control. They send it out to anybody that's your follower in the order of when they followed you. So earlier people that they followed, they'll see their videos and then they'll see yours. But everybody's stuff gets out, which is the way it should be. turns out they have a front page that has about 20 different video suggestions, and it's got science, politics, a couple other categories, and you got to hope to hit that to be able to, or do ads. I guess you could do ads for your channel and hope that, but it's a political place, I think, and I don't know if ads would get enough people to watch my shark attack stuff, so I decided to rip it all down. So I spent a weekend putting it all up there and then ripping it all down. Like I said, you know, whatever. Rumble's not going to work for me. It's not going to be able to, it's pretty much YouTuber bust. And like I said to them, they're, you know, they've got felons and people that they cover for and people that do things that are against terms of service. They don't do a thing to them, and they're going to throttle a scientific educational channel. It's just sad, but winner is both of us, because you're going to get more videos. I'm going to get to do what I love to do, which is shark attacks, and we'll move forward. So check your notifications pretty much daily from here on out, because I'm going to try to push a bunch of these attacks out. 600 episodes to go at least, so we'll see what we can do. If you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.